But in actual fact, what do most religions and spiritual traditions have at their heart? What's one of the core instructions, if you like, or messages? And that is, and I can use the Bible as an example, the Bible says more than 360 times, be not afraid. Those three words, be not afraid. Now, that's not an idea, it's an instruction. It says, don't be afraid. Fear is what activates the wrong part of your brain. It doesn't, and it blocks off the part of your brain that's there, that's been given to you by infinite intelligence or God, or whatever you want to call it, to ensure that you live your biological purpose, being the best that you can be. So you can't blame anybody else for the fact that you're not using it the right way.
Welcome, beautiful beings, to season 2 of the Cosmic Love Antenna podcast with your host, Harrison Ma. This podcast sets the loving intention of creating the mystical space needed to pull back the layers restricting health, alignment, and love. Now let's walk you home to your cosmic spiritual heart space. Before we continue this beautiful chat today, wonderful souls, I need to jump in here to share something really exciting. If you've been following these episodes or you've been following me on social media, you know that I am in the process of releasing my first book, Your Cosmic Love Antenna, Define, Embody, and Emit Your Unique Frequency of Love. And at the time of this episode release, pre-orders are now open. If you have been pulled to this show, if you're looking to understand the what, the how, and the why of love, if you're looking to apply some of the tools connected to your chakras, inner child, releasing religious trauma, ancestral healing, emotional release, and so much more, then this beautiful expression from my heart to yours is for you. If you are looking to channel more of your unique gifts and the divine frequency that you are, these pages will open all of this up. And if you're interested, all you need to do is go to cosmicloveantenna.com. That's cosmicloveantenna.com. And you can pre-order this book right now. If you pre-order, click on that link, put in your email, you're going to get access to some special gifts that I'm only offering to those who get in before I release it fully. These gifts are going to be some more channeled meditations, activations, and some other surprises from my heart to yours. So head over to cosmicloveantenna.com, pre-order this beautiful expression, and I can't wait to hear how it shifts your life. If you're listening to this after pre-order sales, that same link can be also used to go to the direct purchase link. Sending love, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode today. Good morning, evening, afternoon, beautiful beings. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another loving, mystical, spiritual, mental conversation today from my heart to yours to give you some guidance, some insights, and to ideally and hopefully pull back the layers restricting health, alignment, and love within your heart space today. I have the pleasure to introduce a beautiful man who has so much knowledge and wisdom and insight to give you today. But as always, before I get to him and his gifts, I want to set the foundation for all the people watching live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome. A reminder, if you have questions, comments today, please leave them in the comment section. I'm going to read out any questions and things that come up. Welcome, Jade. Welcome, Karen. I see you in the Facebook. If you get some value out of this chat today, please share this far and wide. If you're listening on the podcast, it really helps us expand the show. And you can also leave any questions or feedback, comments on Apple and Spotify in your reviews as well. That helps us reach more hearts. The powerful man that I have on the show today is the lovely Liam Naden. Liam is a speaker, a teacher, an author, and a researcher. He teaches the Neurostate Rebalancing tool and technique, and the objective of this is to eliminate problems, take control of your life by rebalancing the 4 parts of your brain. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the secret knowledge and the knowing of the brain, universal intelligence activation, expressing the blueprint of who you actually are, control, power, fear, and a lot of tools and tips to lean into this powerful part of you. Liam, welcome to the Cosmic Love Antenna.
Hello, Harrison. Thank you very much for having me on the show. And it's an honor. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
The honor is all mine, Liam. We have had the pleasure to, and we'll speak about this at the end of the chat, we've had the pleasure to connect in a retreat that we're holding together at the end of the year in November. And it's been so nice getting to know your heart and the work that you do in the world and how you show up. And it only felt natural to invite you onto my platform and to have a discussion about all your beautiful gifts and knowledge. So let's start with that, Liam. Let's just dive and drive straight into the question at hand, because I know you have so much to speak on this, and then I'll ask questions along the way. Liam, what is this secret knowledge? What is this secret knowledge or knowing of the brain that people don't see?
Well, I think the secret knowledge comes firstly from an awareness of something that I think most people have completely overlooked, and that is we actually live in a biological world. We're part of a physical world. And I know that sounds a bit silly. People say, what do you mean I've overlooked that I'm in a physical world? Of course, I know I've got a physical body. But I think what we've forgotten, if we're searching for meaning, if we're searching for purpose, if we're searching for understanding who we are, and if we're also searching to try and find solutions to problems and really create the best life for ourselves that we can, what we often do is we use our thinking, our mind, and we go off in possibly a spiritual direction. And I'm certainly not negating the spiritual direction at all, but it's all tied in. But the missing link, if you like, is this realization that we do have a biological mechanism that we all operate with. And we need to harness that and use that and really realize that this is the tool, this is the foundation on which we can do all of those other things. It's our physical being that allows us to access the other parts of who we are and also to understand who we are as well. So,
Liam, let me jump in here already, because for people that have tuned into my show for any amount of time, and for all of the new souls popping in, this already is this is already a myth buster already happening here, because let me just speak from the spiritual lens, Liam, that you just added in. In many spiritual communities, there is a escaping the body, right? There is a sort of pushing the body away, pushing the body as if it's something that needs to be transcended, something that needs to be forgotten, something that needs to be overlooked to come back to our awakening. But that's not what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say that the body is key, not just to a spiritual awakening, but to sort of showing up in our fullest light. What does that resonate, Liam? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And when you really think about it, whatever tradition you follow, and many people in the world follow a religious tradition in which they believe in a God or a higher intelligence or an energy or a force that is in control of everything. And from a logical point of view, that makes total sense, that we live in a structured, ordered universe, and it is not only infinite, it is intelligent. And therefore, there is something that is organizing everything and making it happen. But on a physical level, you could say if there is a God or an infinite intelligence or an energy that is the responsible for creating everything, including us and our experience, it's something that we are a part of, an integral part of, then surely that higher intelligence would give us something, a vehicle, a mechanism with which to experience this physical experience. And not only would it give us a physical instrument with which to experience it, but it would want us to experience the fullness of this experience.
Yes, through the vehicle.
through that vehicle. That's what it's been provided for. That's why we have a physical body. It's to give us the greatest experience we can have. So, but often what tends to happen, and I used to do this for many, many years myself, is you're busy trying to change and fight against the laws of nature. So in other words, you're saying things to yourself like, well, I don't like my life the way it is, but so I'm going to fight against my life. I'm going to, and I'm going to do it through determination or motivation, or I'm going to work on pushing hard rather than going with the flow, because one of the laws of nature, and again, just to make that point, we are governed. You can be as motivated as you like. You can pray as much as you like. You can change your thoughts as much as you like. But if you walk out a 10-story building, you're going to go down. We are governed by physical laws. And if you, for instance, try and stop breathing, you can't do it. So nature really, the physical, this is the vehicle, but instead of having to fight against it, what we need to realize is when we understand how it works, and then we can actually use that, and we can be like the rest of nature, which is universally, apart from the human species, the rest of nature operates going with nature, with the flow, not against it, not resisting, not trying to swim upstream. So it's vital to understand and to acknowledge that, yes, okay, I have a physical body. I live in a physical world, not to try and, as you say, escape from it, because when you can harness this mechanism, this machinery that you've been given in the right way, you don't need to escape from it. You realize it's what you're here to experience, and you can experience it in a much greater way. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
Let's talk about that, Liam. So firstly, thank you I can feel your excitement in this knowledge that you express. And I just want to welcome all the beautiful souls joining in the Facebook chat. Welcome, Laurie. I see you down there. Welcome, Maureen, and all the wonderful beings popping in. Again, if you have questions today that pop up for either myself or Liam, add it into the comment section and we'll make your voice a part of this chat. Liam, so much in what you just said resonates with my being, and I had the pleasure this week of releasing my first book. And in that book, for the people that have either read it or you're interested in getting it, there's a chapter I call the physical pillar, right? And I call it the physical pillar because in the metaphor that I use for this show, Liam, this is the cosmic love antenna, right? And I see us as that cosmic love antenna. We have that divine frequency of love that runs through us. But then, like any antenna system, that frequency is impacted to the extent in which the physiological structure around the frequency is either strong and sturdy and vibrant and open to the flow, like you said, or it is impacted by choices that we're making that we're pushing against and causing that structure to fall away, right? So I guess where I want to take this now, Liam, is talking specifically about the brain here, okay? Because we could do many episodes speaking about different areas of the body, whether it's, our sacral space, whether it's our root center, whether it's our stomach, right? All of these things for another conversation. But for you particularly, what I like about your work, Liam, is the understanding of the different, not just the different sections of the brain, but the section of the brain that opens us up to this universal intelligence. So I'm wondering if you could speak about that specific section of our brain that allows more of this flow, divine flow into our life.
Absolutely. Okay. And this actually relates to what you were alluding to before about, where is this knowledge? You mentioned earlier, where is this knowledge?
Secret knowledge.
The secret knowledge. Yeah. Because just to make one little point before I get into that, as maybe a little bit of background, and just to really clarify something about our physical nature. If you accept that we are a part of nature and we're governed by natural laws, one of the most important laws, which very few people have heard of, they know about the law of gravity. They know about the law of opposites. There's in, out, up, down, hot, cold, everything's opposite. They know about the law of frequency. Well, one of the laws that governs biology is what I call the law of thriving. And the law of thriving says that, and if you ask any biological scientist, he will tell you this is absolutely true, that the purpose of all biological life, the biological purpose, including our biological purpose, is to be the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance for survival. That's what all biological life is wired, geared, directed to do, is to ensure that it's the best that it can be so that it has the greatest chance of surviving and continuing on with the survival of the species. And every living thing has been given a machine that enables it to do that. Just like you've been given a heart to ensure your blood pumps, you've been given a machine to ensure that you are the best that you can be, and that is your brain. And the brain is this mechanism which is almost infinitely powerful, designed specifically not just to make you survive, but to be the best that you can be, and therefore have the greatest chance for your survival. And part of that, and people sometimes say to me, well, that makes sense. I sort of know that. I mean, I've got a brain and it keeps me alive and keeps all my organs going. And if I get sick, it works to heal me, directing my whatever needs to happen. And if I cut my finger, there's some mysterious mechanism that heals my finger, and I can accept that it's all directed by my brain. So that's all on a physical level. But if you think about humans, what makes us unique is that being the best that we can be doesn't just mean being our best physically. It means being our best emotionally and spiritually. And it's when we are feeling the most fulfilled. In other words, when we're feeling happy, that is the greatest expression. Another word for happiness really is love. And we know that when we feel love, this outbursting of love and gratitude, we not only feel great, but we literally are on a physical, spiritual, and mental level being the best that we can be. That is So, in other words, the definition of you living your purpose is being the best that you can be, and it's expressed through your love, your gratitude, in the state of. It's sometimes been described as being in the flow or in the zone. And often creators like musicians or artists or athletes, they describe the state, and spiritual people as well, of course, have spiritual words for the state, where you just feel at one with the universe. And not only are you feeling really good, but everything's working in your life really well. Things are flowing. You're making the right decisions. You're inspired with new ideas. You see the right decisions that you should make, and you make those decisions. You're motivated to do that. And you see the wrong decisions that you shouldn't make, and you avoid making those. Now, this is all a function of your brain working the right way to ensure that you're the best that you can be. And when you're in that state, your brain is working the way it should, because you are giving yourself the greatest chance for survival by being the best that you can be. But here's the thing, there are 4 parts to the brain.
Let me jump in here before you get into that, because I know where you're going with this and I want to hear about it. But just before that, we get to that, I just want to make sure people heard what you said, right, with this flow state, right? And I've noticed in my experience, Liam, and maybe you can share what you've experienced with this. The more that we recognize it, the more that we bring awareness to that flow state, the more that it moves through us, right? The awareness of the state itself brings it more through us, right? Another way to say this would be that universal intelligence that we connect into that you were just highlighting. It is not the body, it is not the brain, but it is the consciousness that moves through it. So a practical example, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Liam, and then we can keep going with the examples of the different sections of the brain. A practical example of this is when we find ourselves in that flow, in that love. Another word I would add is in that bliss. I would say bliss is another characteristic of the flow. We can allow ourselves to observe it, right? Catch ourselves, because I notice, Liam, that I can keep going. I can just keep doing. I can be in the flow, but then just not take a moment. I guess the word I'm looking for is gratitude and celebrate. What are your thoughts on this, Liam? I just wanted to ask this because I know that you probably have experience with it.
Well, absolutely, that's all correct. And the reason for that is, again, physiological. Because when you are in this state, what is literally happening in your brain is you are accessing the part of your brain that is otherwise not accessible, but it's the part that's responsible for managing your life, bringing to you the right circumstances and situations and people. Sometimes people say, well, that was luck or coincidence, or how did that happen? Something that unexpected that was good. There's no random events in this universe. It's your creative brain at work. But here's the thing, what all this comes down to is awareness.
Yeah.
Because when you actually access the creative, I call it the creative part of your brain, and I can explain a bit more about what that is. But when you actually are able to access this part of your brain so that you are in the flow or in the zone expressing love, your awareness shifts and your awareness becomes expanded, and you don't see anything different to what is, you actually see the truth about what is. So everything that you see when you're not in that state is not the truth. And this is why people, when they're in conflict with themselves and they're saying, I've got all these problems and I've got all this stress in my life and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to figure these things out. The problem is they're not accessing that creative part of their brain, because if they were able to, they would instantly see the truth about their life, their situation, what their problems, quote unquote, actually were, what the solutions actually were, and the solutions would come to them. But it comes down to awareness. It's all about a state of awareness, and you can't see it. You can't see the truth until you access this particular state. And can I just make one other thing?
Please.
People think, well, maybe this is some mystical state that I need to go off and spend 20 years studying with a guru to access. This is our natural state. Our brain is designed to make sure we live like this there's only one time we're not supposed to live like this. We can talk about that. But this is your natural state. It's not difficult. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be how you live all the time. And that's the great part about it. But you can only know how to do it or how to access it when you know how to access it, if you like.
Another way to say what you just said, Liam, it's a remembering of this. Right? It's a remembering of this state that we are, right? It's not the reason that it's easy, it's because it's there to begin with. I want to go back to what you said in terms of it. If you're not in it, then you're in an illusion, right? If you're not in it, there is some sort of lie or separation. And I want to bring in what we spoke about earlier with the role of the body. This is, I've found, Liam, and maybe I'd love to get your perspectives on this. This is also where the body comes in to remind us when we are in that state of non-flow, let's just call it, or disconnected from universal source, our body doesn't feel good. Our body will feel tight. Our body will feel constricted. Our body will feel heavy. Our body will feel dense. Our body will feel, there'll be something moving through us. And that in itself is an indicator of something that is most likely in the way of coming back to this truth. Have you noticed this, Liam, in the work that you do?
Well, absolutely. And again, it's got a biological, physiological explanation to all of this. Because remember, we said that the purpose biologically of your existence, how you are wired, like all of nature, is to be the best that you can be. And when you're in that state of using your brain the right way and you're in the flow creative state, you are being the best you can be. Science has a word for that, and it's called homeostasis. And homeostasis is the state called the perfect and optimal functioning of the organism. So it's not just humans who have this state of homeostasis, it's all of nature. It's when everything physically is operating perfectly to enable you to function at your best. And of course, we know that all disease is caused by not being in this state. In other words, when you're not happy, when you're stressed and worried and you're not functioning well, it has a direct physical effect on your body. So you're not being the best that you can be. Therefore, you are actually shortening your life. You're not giving yourself to the greatest chance for survival when you're feeling stressed. So it actually has a physiological basis. And I often, one thing that I figured out, and it took me a long time to figure this out when I was really working on this whole physiological aspect of who we are and how we could harness that to access the best of who we are. One thing I thought of, I thought the brain actually, if you really looking at it on a mechanical level, it's just a machine. It's a machine. And what is a machine? A machine is a mechanism, a collection of components designed to create an outcome. And so your brain is a machine that has only one function, that's to make you the best that you can be so that you have the greatest chance for your survival. But if you think about any machine, think about a motor car, which is another machine. I often use this analogy, which is designed for a very specific job. It's to get you from where you are to where you want to go. And it will do that predictably, reliably, and it will do that and would also make it an enjoyable ride for you.
Yeah.
And here's the key, if you drive it the right way, if you know how to use it. So if you don't know how to use it, and if you drive it the wrong way, what's going to happen? Two things. One is you're going to get all stressed and going to put in all this struggle and effort and not get very far. And the second thing is you're going to end up with problems, maybe to yourself, because if you were, for instance, trying to push a motor car along because you didn't realize that you just need to get in and steer it and use the accelerator and enjoy it. If you thought, well, I have to be out behind and push the thing along and put in all this effort, what's going to happen? You're not going to get anywhere and you're going to have an unpleasant experience. You're going to harm yourself. So the great thing that I love sharing with people is once you understand that if you accept there's a biological function, that your brain is a machine that's designed to have you access all of the best of who you are and have the greatest awareness of who you are, and therefore have the greatest experience of who you are, all you need to do is firstly understand a little bit about how it works, like you would with a motor car. You wouldn't dream of getting in and saying, well, I'm just going to drive it without knowing anything about it. You'd have to learn a little bit about how it works. And secondly, once you do, then you just drive it the right way, and it's guaranteed to give you the result. That's what it's designed to do.
Speaking of driving it the right way, that's where I want to go here next, Liam. And before we do, I just want to honor all the people popping into the chat. Welcome, Katie. I see you there, my lovely friend. I hope this is bringing value. Again, if you're watching this live, leave your comments, your questions, anything that's bubbling up around these topics. And this is really my intention for bringing on Liam. Within the spiritual community that I would classify myself within, I think the brain is very misunderstood. And I know in my experience, I've equated the mind and the brain together, which I wouldn't now. I would say the mind is a full human thing. It's a full body thing. But I think when we equate those two words together, mind and brain, we can overlook the mechanism that is the brain itself, that the brain doesn't create consciousness or doesn't create the connection to the one mind. It is the tool. It is the vehicle, as you said, the receptor that picks it up, and then we decide on how to drive it, which leads me, Liam, into the next question I want to ask you. Many of us haven't learnt how to drive it. Many of us, and there's so many things bubbling up for why this is, but the one I want to sort of pose you here is an understanding and the role of the pineal gland and the pituitary gland and what their function is as a part of this vehicle. So I'll throw you the mic here and then I want to go into discussion around this. Where does the pituitary and the pineal gland come into this secret knowledge within the brain, Liam?
Right. Well, this is very interesting. This is getting to the meat of it. Remember, I mentioned there are 4 parts to your brain.
Yep.
And
coming back.
The creative part of it, if I could just mention briefly what the other 3 are, in case people are wondering. But the first part is what I call your thinking brain or your intelligence brain. And this is located in the top of your head. It's predominantly in a physical place, which we call the cerebrum or the neocortex. But the purpose of this part of your brain is to really store all of the information that you gather throughout your life or knowledge. So everything that you experience through your 5 senses, everything you hear, smell, taste, touch, or see, all of your thoughts, this all comes in and gets stored in this part of your brain so that you can use it to identify things. You can see a tree because you've seen a tree before, and it's not a fish, all that sort of stuff. And it enables you to communicate as well. The second part of your brain is what I call your feeling brain or your emotional brain. And this is responsible for generating chemicals that determine how you feel. And this is located just below your thinking brain. A couple of areas, the hippocampus and the amygdala are the most well known. So these create chemicals, and we can talk a little bit about how this mechanism works and what determines the feelings that you have. But obviously there's a spectrum from feeling great, happy, loving, all the positive ones, to the, feeling fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. The third part of your brain is what I call the survival brain, but it's at the back of the head, the base of the skull.
This is connected to your limbic system too, correct?
That's right, yeah. And I call it survival brain because it functions with everything to do, or it's responsible for keeping you alive on a moment-by-moment basis. Not through your thoughts, but all the things you don't think about, such as, your breathing and physical bodily functions. Autonomic
nervous system, all those things, the parasympathetic, sympathetic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the parasympathetic and sympathetic are a little bit, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that, if we want to get a bit technical, that's the key to understanding how your brain works. But for many years, science thought those were really the three parts of the brain. And relatively recently, they've started to uncover there is actually a fourth part to your brain, which is called your creative brain, what I call your creative brain. And you mentioned the two areas where that creative brain operates from. Because remember, we are talking about physical locations. This isn't just one of those imaginary theoretical pictures you can have about your brain. These are scientific, science has uncovered these are the functions of different areas of the stuff in your head physically. But your creative brain is primarily what you mentioned before, your pituitary gland and your pineal gland. And science for a long time thought, firstly, these weren't very significant. They had a physical function. So the pineal gland has been associated with your sleep patterns. It produces a substance called melatonin. So, and for a long time, scientists thought, well, it's only tiny anyway, and that's all it does. Okay, fair enough. But more recently, they've uncovered that this part of your brain does an awful lot more for you in terms of determining how your life turns out. And it turns out that these parts of your brain, when activated, are actually your connection to this universal intelligence and to the part of you that is designing your life in a way to ensure that you are the best that you can be. So these are the parts that actually are supposed to be activated to drive your life so that you make the right, as I said earlier, you make the right decisions. You're creative, you're imaginative, you have higher awareness, and everything flows in your life. And it all comes from activating these two things. And funnily enough, when science discovered this and they started to look at the deeper functions of this, they found that religions had actually been teaching this for a very long time, but it was guarded secret knowledge.
And Liam, not just religions. So first of all, I just want to honor you thank you for outlining the 4 sections of the brain, because it's with that roadmap, we can sort of see what we're dealing with here now. And I wanted people listening to have that knowledge if they didn't already. This is what I want to dive into now with you, Liam, just to take this into this direction of religion. So not just religions had this knowledge. I would say all past civilizations that had some awareness of the energetic, ethereal world. Because where my mind goes, Liam, when you speak about this, I go straight to the chakra system, right? I go straight to the chakra system, and specifically, the third eye and the crown chakra. And both of those centers, if you look at, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, if you look at, Buddhism, if you look at all the Eastern philosophies, they show intrinsically this opening of not just these physiological glands, but their link to the small self, which I would call the human, the physiology that we've been talking about today, the identity, and the oneness and the God source that we also simultaneously are. So I interrupted you, Liam. I want to keep hearing here about, I'm thinking where we can take this because there are many directions. I would like to hear you speak, Liam, on why has this been secret? Because it wasn't secret, and then it did become secret. So I'm wondering, Liam, if you could speak to if this is the mechanism that opens up our connection to our power in many ways. Why has this understanding around the brain and specifically these two glands been buried?
Right. Well, I should also say, when I said religions, I was also about to say, and spiritual traditions as well. Because, yes, obviously religion is a very narrow, or it's a narrower subset of spiritual traditions, if you like. Well, why has this knowledge not been widely known? Well, a couple of things. I think, firstly, what tends to happen with, and without sounding too conspiratorial, yeah, that's right. What tends to happen in human societies when they get organized, and particularly if people aren't using their brain the right way, is and we could talk about the other part of the brain that causes this particular behavior, but it causes a particular type of behavior in humanity which is centered around controlling other people, establishing structures of power. That's right. And the way you do, because here's the fact of the matter, when somebody is in their creative state, being the best that they can be, you can't control them because they are being controlled by their higher self, which is leading them to the right decisions, the right circumstances, the right experiences to ensure that they are having their best experience. And for everybody, that experience is unique. Because here's another little, if we could go off on a slight tangent here about, which again relates to biology. But on a biological level, each of us is totally unique. And what makes us unique is that we have this stuff inside every cell of our being, this chemical protein stuff, which we've probably heard of, called DNA. And simply put, what DNA is, it's a collection of instructions and materials which identifies the uniqueness of you. So everybody has a unique pattern. It's a blueprint of who you are. So in a very real sense, the purpose of your brain is to express what is contained in that blueprint of who you are to the greatest of its ability, to bring that out to the best, so to bring out the best of who you are. So in that, you don't need other people involved in telling you what to do or directing you or telling you things like you're not good enough or you need to do something different. When you're harnessing your brain the right way, your brain is going to make sure that all of the right things happen to give you the best life experience possible. So it's very important if you have this knowledge, you know that if you want to create a structure where people are in control and you have power, you need to find a way to take that power away from other people so that you can direct it yourself. And the way you do that, of course, is by teaching them all this full stuff about how their brain works. And we can talk about that, all the misinformation that we've been given about who we are, but also about how our brain works. You don't want people to know that because people will realize and express and operate from their own power. You know, there's another less conspiratorial explanation as well, and it's more of a I hate the word evolution, but it's more of a how the human body physiologically is set up, and that is to say that there's only one. I'm not trying to sound rambly here, but there's only one time when you're not supposed to be in this wonderful creative state, feeling loving, being the best that you can be, contributing the most to the world and to yourself. There's only one time, and that's to deal with an immediate threat or a danger. And one of the things that has to happen in that, or that might need to happen in that time, is you might need to get organized and you might need to take instructions from other people. Because you can imagine if, in prehistoric times, you're a caveman or whatever, and a pack of lions is running towards the village. In that state, you need to get organized and you need a leader and you need everybody else somebody to say, right, everybody pick up your swords or pick up your spears and fight. And it needs to be organized. So in a very specific and limited way, there is a purpose to this part of your brain being open to being directed by other people. But that's all it's there for. But it's, if you like, the misuse of that, and I guess people who understand how this works are able to misuse that, not just to get people to do things that are good for the short-term things, to fight the lions, but to control people long-term and to get them to do things that they want them to do. So that's probably the main reason, I think.
Yeah, it's the reason. I think you just outlined beautifully the dynamic here, and I just want to echo it back a few points just to make sure everyone heard it. The short-term danger response of this lion is coming to eat me, so I need to look outside of me, right? I need to look outside of me for the tribe, the leader, the community, the coach, whoever the thing is, the healer, to support the community. It's very natural. However, and this is where the suppression, the control, the power, the systems, the government, all the things, we don't need to, people can use their imagination. All the frameworks that exist, as you beautifully said, take this short-term danger response and push it into the red long-term, right? And this is coming back to the individual, because I want to make this very clear, because we've spoken a lot about the body today. This is why a lot of people are sick, in my opinion. This is why a lot of people are in dis-ease, because they are in this chronic relinquishing of their power, right? They're in this chronic, my power is eternally outside of me, right? It is not inside of me. I am constantly looking out for the tiger, using this metaphor, and not remembering what I actually am. So, Liam, let's talk now about this, because this is, when I tune into all the beautiful listeners that are here live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and listening to the podcast, all of this is wonderful. And I think we've outlined many blueprints, in your words, and structures to define some things here. But let's get practical. I want to share some tools of, let's use that example, right? Let's use the example of, maybe I'm feeling like I'm being controlled by a person, by a group, by a government, by a religious organization, whatever it is. And I want to connect back into my inner knowing, my pineal connection, the powerful brain vehicle that is in me that connects me to the source. What are some tools, Liam, that we can implement to do this?
All right. Well, the main tool is understanding. And maybe what I mean by that is you need to understand how your brain works. Because imagine if you had a teenage child or a son or whatever who said, "Dad, can I borrow the car? And because there's a party 100 miles away tonight and I want to go there." And the father said, "But you don't know how to drive it." And the son said, "Well, that's right. Just give me a quick tool so that I can get to the party tonight. And then I'll learn how to do it later if I need to. But I don't want to, just give me something quick that will fix the problem, if you like." Now, anyone with any sense is going to say it doesn't work that way. There is no quick fix. There only is an understanding of how it works, using it the right way, seeing from your results that it's working the right way, and then operating with a bit of practice. And then that's the way your life goes. So I'm not saying I'm not going to give some tools and some practical advice, but the most important thing to realize is that if you're just looking for a quick fix, I'm not suggesting you're saying a quick fix either, but just if people are thinking, just give me a quick fix. How do I just get my brain working and get my problem solved tomorrow or today or whatever? Or how can I expand my awareness today? It's not a quick fix. It does come from understanding. But the beautiful part is, like with a car, if you take a little bit of time to understand how it works and you practice a little bit and you see the results you get, you don't even need to, that's all you need, because then you think, well, this is obviously the way it works. It's logical. And one of the things comes down to the fuel that you put in. Imagine if you're in someone comes along to with your motor car and says, "I've got a new type of fuel that's really great. Everybody's saying how great it is. It's called hydrochloric acid." Or no, this is a drink that they're going to give you. and they say, this really new drink, it does wonders for the skin. And you would look at them and you would say, excuse me, what are you talking about? Oh, no, it's fine. You say, look, are you something a bit weird about you? Don't you know that it's going to damage me if I take that? And they say, well, look, I'll give you $1 million if you drink it. And not only that, but if you don't drink it, your grandmother is going to die, and all these other people are going to die. Or they're not going to die, but they're all going to think that you're a terrible person because you haven't drunk it. But you're going to say, well, it doesn't matter the justification for telling me I should drink that. If I do, it's not going to give me the result I want. And exactly the same thing happens with your brain. If you don't use it the right way, because when I explain why people don't use it the right way, which I'm sure would be good to get onto in a second, and how to do what people really want to know, which is how to use their brain the right way so that they don't have problems, they don't have stress, and everything works perfectly in their life with them being the best that they can be. If you don't know how to do that, then it's just not going to happen. And if you do the wrong thing, it doesn't matter how motivated you feel, or how much you pray, or how inspired you feel, or how determined you are, or whatever those things are, it's just not going to work for you. So here's the practical where the rubber hits the road, if you like.
Before you get into that, Liam, because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear the practical tips. But again, you're speaking so much knowledge here today, Liam. The consumption piece of what you're consuming and how that impacts the motor that is the brain, the vehicle that is the brain. I just want to make this very clear for everyone watching. That consumption is also, it's not just physical fuel in terms of food, hydration, maybe sun, maybe movement, but it's also what you are letting into your world in terms of the belief systems and the thought processes of your external relationships, right? So, for example, as you were just explaining that example around someone teaching you a certain thing and it being held within a consciousness of fear, that's going to program you, right? That's going to program the brain into acting in a certain way, right? And I guess I'll drop a tip, and then I want to go back to yours, Liam. A very good way to be mindful of this is really observing what you are watching, right? So whether it be through social media, whether it be through the news, whether it be through books that you're reading, whether it be through courses that you're taking, treat the information that you're taking in as the quality of the food and the movement and the liquids that you're adding into that vehicle as well. Would you agree with that, Liam?
Actually, you've hit it on one. That's exactly right. And this is the reason why that is so true. On a physical, we're talking physical, biological here. So in other words, something that's provable. Okay, but you're absolutely bang on, of course, with that idea. Because this is the way you're designed to be the best that you can be, living the greatest life possible. You're designed to be in a state where you access, through your pineal gland and your pituitary gland, you access your creative brain, which then directs your life to ensure all of the best things happen to you on a physical, mental, and spiritual level, so that you have the greatest chance for survival by being the best that you can be, which means being happy, and it doesn't mean having problems and stress. That's what the brain state is designed to ensure your life is like. Now, there's only one time you're not supposed to feel like that. And the brain has a mechanism to deal with this as well. And that one time is every now and then, and these days it's hardly ever, but it used to be a lot. Every now and then something may come into your environment that could be a threat to your physical survival.
The lion that we talked about.
The lion
before.
we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so your brain has a mechanism to deal with that. But remember, it's not designed to chase lions or get rid of lions all the time. But what happens in your brain, it actually happens, to get a little bit technical, in your emotional brain. Your emotional brain has a part which is continuously evaluating in your environment whether what is around you is safe or dangerous. And if it says it's safe, it sends a chemical signal to the rest of your brain to say that it's safe by making you feel good. So it releases these chemicals, and which we sometimes call hormones or neurotransmitters. and you feel good. You feel happy, you feel great, you feel loving, creative, imaginative. And that's, of course, activating your creative brain so that everything good happens. But if your emotional brain identifies that there's something that's a threat to your survival, like a lion, it stops producing those chemicals and it sends a different set of chemicals that create fear. Now, when you activate fear in your body, what actually happens is you activate something science calls the sympathetic nervous system. You mentioned this right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And what happens when the sympathetic nervous system is activated is all of the resources of your brain and body, energy resources, are directed to eliminate automatically, without you thinking. Remember, this isn't your thinking brain, automatically to deal with that threat or danger. And we call this sometimes the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. So with the lion, you find yourself reacting. Excuse me, you jump out of the way, or you run away, or you shout for help, or you get ready to fight. But this is all happening without you thinking. It's happening automatically. But one of the things that happens, there are several things that happen when you activate this sympathetic nervous system. These are necessary things that have to happen for you to be able to fight off the danger. One is your awareness shuts down and your brain becomes totally focused on problems and danger in your environment. So your brain is looking out, it's not looking at the trees and the beautiful flowers and the wind gently flowing over your skin and all the nice things. It's blocking all of those things out, and it's saying, where is the threat? Where is the danger? There's a lion coming. What's that noise? Is that a snake in the grass? Where are my threats and what's dangerous in my environment? I need to get rid of it, eliminate it as fast as possible. Now, of course, what's interesting about that when you really think about it is, what are most people doing most of the time? They're focused on their problems in their life. That's all they see. They say to me, you can't be happy, Liam, because it's all well for you. I've got all these problems. There's all these terrible things going on in the world. World War III is about to start. Stock market's collapsing. We've got diseases and all these homeless people and all these terrible things. And my life, I've got relationship problems and all these things. This is all a function of your being in this fearful, stressed state. That's all that your brain allows you to see, because your brain is designed to see the threats and dangers in your life.
And Liam,
now, of course,
just to jump in here, because I can't, this needs to be added to this point that you're saying, because I want to add in the spiritual lens. When you fixate on that, and I'm sure you've noticed this, when you fixate on that small fearful reality that your brain is responding to, and you stay in that, like we've been talking about today, with systems outside of you maybe exacerbating it, right? It becomes your future reality, right? It doesn't just extend in that moment in time, but it becomes your future state, right? It continues to cycle. Like, I just want to make this very clear, because this is the spiritual lens of this, right? The outside world is just your perceptions objectified, right? So if your current perception is, like you said beautifully, there's World War III, there's all of these horrible things out to get me, then that's the reality that continues to reverberate. Do you agree with that, Liam?
Yes, well, really what you're talking about, another way of putting it, is everything is perception. Everything about that you see is not about what's actually happening. It's what you think it means, what you perceive it to be. And this is why, a few years ago, I often tell this story, I went from being a multimillionaire to becoming homeless, losing everything, moving back with my mother and sleeping on the sofa in her small apartment. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, that's a terrible thing that must have happened. You'd spent your life building everything up and then it all just disappeared. What did you do? It felt terrible at the time on one level, but looking back on it from a different perspective, it was one of the best things that ever happened. And in fact, most people, if you were to ask them about things that had happened in their life that at the time seemed like disasters or really terrible things, if they hadn't already seen the perfection in what had happened and how it had allowed them to grow and change and be a better version, in other words, what a gift it was, it doesn't take that much to be able to see the perfection in everything. But when you're in a state of fear, When you activate your sympathetic nervous system, your brain is focused on problems. And if it can't find any, it's going to make more. But when you activate your creative brain, your awareness raises, and a lot of the things that you see were problems, you no longer see them that way because your brain's perception sees the truth, because a lot of things we call problems aren't problems. Anyway, people say, well, World War III might happen. And I say, don't we live in the most amazing time in history? If you were to go back 100 years and describe your life to people about what you do without even thinking about, you can turn a tap on and water comes out, or you can talk to someone on the other side of the world instantly. You can get on a machine and go and visit them in just a few hours. They go, wow, if that could be my life, I would be so incredibly happy. But what do we see in the world today? Reportedly, record levels of unhappiness. We should be the happiest people that have ever existed. So that tells you it's not about what's happening, it's about perception of what's happening.
I love that.
And the perception is framed by the brain state that you choose, or should I say have been chosen for you without you realizing, for you to be in. So if you activate your sympathetic nervous system, if you activate fear, if you allow something, whether it's a belief you have or whether it's something external that comes to you, if you allow that fear to be activated or to create fear in your life, whatever it is, your perception, you are never going to be the best that you can be. You are locked in a different brain state designed to solve problems, not to show you who you are, not to create your ideal life. And people in this state are trying to fix their life. They're trying to figure out who they are, what they should do, what their goals are, what's the purpose of their life. You can't do that. Your brain is not equipped in that state to do that. All of the power to do that is in your creative brain, because here's one other point. Remember I said your body takes all of the energy that it can from anywhere to deal with a danger or threat. That's what it's designed to do. It takes it from your creative brain. It literally shuts down your pineal gland, your pituitary gland, and the parts of your creative brain that are designed to do that. You don't have access anymore to higher awareness, to the truth, which is really all higher awareness is. It's simply the truth. You don't have access to all your creative skills, your creative ability, and not just from a purely physical level, from an energy level, because the brain, redirects all of the energy that would otherwise be used for that. But those aren't helpful if you're facing a lion. There's no point, as I say, if a lion's attacking, you're not going to be thinking, no, what are my options here? I need to sit down and write a strategic plan on how to evaluate the situation. It's not designed to do that. And here's a really interesting thing. And people say, well, a couple of questions come out of that. One is, well, why, no one's ever told me about this. But in actual fact, what do most religions and spiritual traditions have at their heart? What's one of the core instructions, if you like, or messages? And that is, and I can use the Bible as an example, the Bible says more than 360 times, be not afraid. Those three words, be not afraid. Now, that's not an idea, it's an instruction. It says, don't be afraid. Fear is what activates the wrong part of your brain. It doesn't, and it blocks off the part of your brain that's there, that's been given to you by infinite intelligence or God, or whatever you want to call it, to ensure that you live your biological purpose, being the best that you can be. So you can't blame anybody else for the fact that you're not using it the right way. That's where that instruction comes down. The other, they talk about have faith, believe, and all those things, but they are all related to this idea that fear is the enemy. Fear unlocks. When you feel fear, despite your best of intentions or best efforts, you've activated the wrong part of your brain, and it's not going to help you, except when the lion's about to eat you. That's all it's there for.
So, Liam, again, I want to thank you. It was beautiful. I was just listening and receiving all of these lessons, and I hope everyone that's tuning in, either live or on the podcast, is really writing down a lot of these notes here, because this is really why I wanted to have you on the show, because this knowledge isn't for Liam. It isn't for me. It is for all of us, right? This is why I'm so happy that you highlighted that awareness and understanding is the tool, right? If we know all this, then we can make better choices. And let me add an extra lens here, and Liam, we only have a little bit more time, so I want to get in a few more questions before we have to close up. But I would assert one of the other reasons that fear and do not be afraid is in the Bible and religious texts so much is fear holds the role of both being helping us. I'm trying to think of how to word this correctly. Fear adds in the separation, right? Like we've been saying, adds in the resistance, adds in the illusion, adds in the pain, especially if it's exacerbated. However, we must move through it, right? The issue here is not the fear itself, right? As we've highlighted a couple of times today, we want that fear to be there when we're being attacked by the lion. The issue is when we are prolonged, when we've become the fear, when the fear is our identity or the fear sustains itself throughout our life. So it's applying the tools, applying the awareness, applying the understanding to alchemize the fear back into our natural state, right? And again, we could have many names for that natural state. Liam, we are coming together at the end of the year in a beautiful experience that I've had the beautiful Brian on the show. I've had Roxanne, who is hosting this experience. It is the Illumination retreat. And you will be there teaching and talking all about this. And I guess what I'd like to hear, Liam, as we wrap up, and before I get to my last question, is for someone that's interested in joining us, and I've actually had a couple of questions come in today, so this is perfect timing. When they're coming to this experience to illuminate their soul, what are some of the tools and the teachings and the loving Liam essence that you will be bringing to this experience?
I'm glad you mentioned the retreat. I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity for everybody involved to do something that truly will make a big transformation in their life. And what I'm hoping to bring, to the experience is not primarily, but a major aspect of what I want to help people with is understanding. I mentioned this machine of how your brain is a machine and how it works. And what I would like people to go away with, and I know they will go away with, is a realization of who they really are. Because here's the thing, when you talk about fear, and I'll be working with people a lot on fear. But the reality is, you mentioned just a moment ago about transforming through fear or working through fear and all those sorts of things. And I agree. But here's the thing that's really puzzling. Why are we afraid of anything? If a lion is not about to eat us, we're only designed biologically, and our brain is only designed to deal with fears that are actually real, something that is there that is about to eat you. It's that, or a car is coming towards you and you jump out of the way. These are real threats and dangers. Everything else is simply faulty perception that we've somehow, our brain has got to a place, and it's through programming, everything we've been exposed to all our life, all of these ideas about who we are, which are all wrong, that we're some limited, helpless victim of circumstances, that somebody else has to come along and tell us what to do, whether it's our parents, our teachers, the police, the government, whoever it is. We've all been, if you like, our brain has become wired the wrong way or filled with these ideas to say that the world is a dangerous place, because what's actually happening on a physical level is, if you're feeling stressed, worried, and anxious, is your brain is telling you there's something in your environment, there's a threat to your survival. And most of the time there isn't. The stock market crashing, or your husband leaving you, or you losing your job. Those aren't actually threats to your survival. And all of those things could be the best thing that ever happened to you from a different perspective and from a view of hindsight. So what's really important, and what I'm really keen on sharing with people, is the ability to show your brain that most of what you think is, that most of what your brain has been conditioned to think is dangerous is simply an imaginary fear. And this is what I do with Neurostate Rebalancing, which is a process which helps your brain see the difference between real fear. Because, of course, you want to feel fear when there's a real threat, when a car is coming towards you or someone raises their fist at you, or no lions about that I know of these days. You want to have that mechanism there, but that's all it's there for. You want to train your brain or rebalance your brain to see the difference between real fears, which don't happen very often at all these days, and imaginary fear. And when you can do that, then that's how you really start to live with your creative brain activated, because you're only snapping out of that when something real shows up in your life that you need to be afraid of. And that's really helping people do that is at the core of what I'm going to be teaching at the retreat. It's what the core of what I teach in general.
Beautiful. I'm excited. I'm excited, Liam, for a few reasons, and I want to share these as we wrap up here. One, as people have tuned in today to tune into your beautiful energy and your teachings, what this highlights to me is a remembering of the holistic being that we are, right? In my opinion, we cannot fully come back to the deeper state of love that we are, alignment, and deeper stages of health if we don't treat ourselves spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally, right? And how I see your beautiful work, Liam, is a puzzle. It fills the missing puzzle piece in many people's lives, right? And this fear element, as you've talked about in many ways today, it governs our life. And if we can take our power back with this practice that you teach, it changes your reality. So I'm excited to receive it. I'm excited to hold space with you. I'm excited to see how our energies like have today have come together, but in the 3D form. I'd encourage people to reach out to me or to Liam to learn more about the retreat, or go to theilluminationretreat.com. Liam, any other details that you want? I have one more question to finish, but before we get to that, if people want to connect to you, if they want to find out more about the retreat, where is the best place they can go?
Just hop on my website, which is just my name, liamnaden.com. And they can contact me directly there, and love to answer any questions or provide insight.
Beautiful. And I'll add for all the people tuning into the podcast and live here on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, I will put it in the show notes of the player. So you could click on Liam's link and go straight to that as well. So Liam, my final question here for you today, and I'm actually really interested to see how you answer this question based off everything you've shared today. This is the cosmic love antenna. And one of the reasons I am so fascinated with love in general is because as a little boy, I became very disillusioned with my higher power being taught to me through the religious lens, being a man on a cloud outside of me. And that led me to a lot of tension and resistance, didn't feel correct. I became atheist. But then I came back to the spiritual connection with an understanding that love is my higher power. So, Liam, I'm interested in your world. How do you define that love word yourself?
Well, love is simply the absence of illusion. Love is truth. And there's a book that has a title, Infinite Love is the Only Truth. Everything else is illusion. And that's it. We are pure love. Everything is pure love. And everything else that isn't pure love is simply not real. It's an illusion. And the great thing is when you activate your creative brain, you see that. You see that as the truth. You don't just see it, you know it. You know it on every level. So this is why it's so important to be able to allow yourself to activate this connection, this tool that you have to see the truth, which is that infinite love is all there is.
Beautifully said, Liam. And it's, just a personal reflection as you shared that. That's where our work intersects together. I feel like your beautiful work with the brain, everything we've talked about today, and my work with the heart. I would say that love is the other end of the spectrum to the fear, right? When we break through the fear that we've talked about today, as you just highlighted, we fall back into the baseline love that we've been this whole time. So thank you, Liam. Thank you, loving Liam, for your time today. Thank you for your energy. Beautiful beings on Facebook, LinkedIn, and listening on the podcast. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your time. If this brought you value today, please share this far and wide. If you have any comments, any feedback, leave it over on Apple and Spotify. But regardless, Liam and I love you unconditionally. And until next time here on the show, we'll see you again very soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Love Antenna with me, your host, Harrison. If you gained value or this episode hit your heart, please remember to share this out with a friend, a family member, or a lover. You can also leave your love over on Apple reviews and Spotify star feedback, and this helps me spread my frequency to more souls in need. Finally, if you want to connect with me deeper, want to reach out, interested in coaching, please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Harrison Meagher, spelled Meagher. Sending you so much love.